Welcome to the next video in the Leveraging LinkedIn lesson. In this section, we will discuss how to make an effective LinkedIn profile by using the concept of backwards design. If you've ever planned a really great vacation, you've probably used backwards design. Let's imagine you want to plan a fun trip for spring break. You likely would start with the destination first. Maybe you want to go to the beach. Then you start to look for specific locations that fit the criteria. And then once you pick a destination, you start thinking about how you'll get there. Will you fly or will you drive? That's backwards design. First, you identify your goal, then you map out the steps you need to take to get to that goal. When it comes to career planning, your destination is going to be your career goals, and the roadmap of how to get there is going to be identifying the skills and strengths and accomplishments you need in order to achieve those goals. So what does the backwards design process look like when creating your LinkedIn profile? Well, first, you need to identify your destination. In other words, what is your target career? If you're unsure of what your dream career might be, I suggest you work through the Career Exploration and Planning lesson, which is part of GradCo's Career Advancement Program, and then come back to this LinkedIn lesson. Once you have identified your target career, next, you want to research the key requirements for that specific role. In other words, what are the skills and qualifications you need to land your dream job? Then, you want to compare your experience with that list of required skills and qualifications, making sure to highlight your strongest qualifications for that target job. And when you're doing that, you want to make sure to use industry-specific language and keywords. We'll talk more about that in a second. Finally, don't just mention that you have the necessary qualifications, but provide evidence of your expertise by using specific examples and metrics. In other words, show, don't just tell, why you are qualified. I mentioned that you want to use keywords in your LinkedIn profile. So what is a keyword? These are specific words and phrases that describe your skills and experience and qualifications. When you are applying to a specific position, you should carefully read the job description to identify keywords. That's because keywords are what recruiters and hiring managers search for during the hiring process to ensure that you are a good fit for the position. Some examples of types of keywords might include technical skills, such as qPCR or Python programming, professional or soft skills, such as leadership or communication, job titles, such as scientist or analyst, and even credentials like PhD. So, how do you find these keywords? Of course, you could search for open positions and read through many job descriptions and then look for common keywords that frequently appear. You could also use LinkedIn to find people who are in your target role and then read through their profiles to identify specific keywords that they mention in their current role and in their past experience. You could also find keywords through staying up to date with your industry through reading blogs, newsletters, and listening to podcasts. Or, of course, you could take advantage of generative AI technology like ChatGPT to quickly scan multiple sources and pull out commonalities. In fact, this is what you're going to be doing in your first activity after this video. In summary, how can you use backwards design to make a great LinkedIn profile? Well, you want to start with your destination and work backwards to create a targeted LinkedIn profile. Use job descriptions and industry research to identify essential keywords and qualifications, and then map your experience to your target role's requirements. And then make sure you always back up your claims with concrete examples and metrics. Remember, show, don't just tell.